There were so many fascinating points you mentioned just now. So I think, yeah, we could perhaps take some time to unravel some of them. Just to
Sure.
introduce myself very briefly, Aliyah, I'm an art critic, writer, and editor. And I'm doing my PhD at the moment, which is an interdisciplinary project, although in art history department, concerned with the notion of plant intelligence and the forms of vegetal, mystical, and art forms of thinking and healing. I think
Amazing.
I'll just probably take up on one of the things you mentioned. You kind of just listed different kinds of entheogens, different types of psychedelics. And I saw this fascinating image on your website on soma.org, which basically puts different types of psychedelics against a particular chakra, a particular part of our body. It's something I've never seen before, and I was really fascinated by that image. And I was wondering if you could talk maybe a little bit more about these different types of psychedelics, whether you have, I don't know, a favorite one, or whether you think like there is one which is particularly relevant for the present day and for those multiple issues which we face as a species.
So I mean, like when it comes down to, and I'll use that what we have on Soma, like, for example, that is, I'll call it plant theology, because there's no way I can concretely prove to you that this chakra will unlock in that way. But if you start looking at things like ayahuasca, it does work within the pineal gland. So that's more easy to kind of understand. But things like cannabis, for example, it works in the throat chakra. That's on two mannerisms. One mannerism is based on Shiva, and the second mannerism is how we consume this plant. The fact is, if you consume a cannabis plant, nothing will happen to you. You need to apply heat to it, which we've been using from mouth onwards. But what does cannabis do to us? How does it communicate? In the jungles, we say cannabis is the lover plant. It's there to love you and you love it. Sometimes that can become more of an affair, but the plant is allowing you to become creative. So people will speak, people will express in different manners. So this chakra is for expression. Now, peyote, for example, which is, we say, part of the anahata chakra, the heart chakra. Now, peyote in itself grows in the desert areas. However, the experience is, I think, what you would call, the scientific term will be like mescaline. And mescaline does allow the rising of dopamine, but also serotonin at the same time, which drives a much more compassionate experience. So going downwards, you know, for example, iboga. Iboga deals down with the lowest chakra, being your ego. Now, this is where in Africa, they see iboga as the father. And after experiencing iboga, I started realizing that, okay, there are multitude levels of spirits beside each human body. I would even as far as go as, if you have 7 chakras, you have 7 personalities inside of you at all times. You just have to kind of get along and work with them. I can't distinctively say this particular plant is going to be the plant that people should use, because I've personally never recommended people entheogens. I feel there's things that you will come to when you're seeking. But ayahuasca, peyote, and iboga seem to be, and actually most prominently, psilocybin mushrooms are the most prominent plant medicines right now. The most sustainable. Let's look at it climate-wise, is things like psilocybin mushrooms. The problem we're facing is like things like ayahuasca and peyote and wachuma. These will take over 13 years to grow, sometimes 20 years or 30 years to be usable. So even though we have a possible way of helping humanity getting a symbiosis relationship with Earth, you know, things like mushrooms are what we're relying on heavily first, because it's sustainable. It can be produced and grown within a span of 2-3 months, whereas these other plants take a far much longer time to grow.